Hey everyone, how are y'all doing? I hope you're having a great day. Today I'm sitting here sipping on some oolong. This is from Renegade Tea Estate. This came in my Sips by box a while back and I just now finished it off. This is their lazy morning oolong tea and I'm having a lazy morning. I haven't had one of these in a long time. It's raining outside, so all of my outside work that I would normally be doing, I'm not doing it. I'm gonna sit down and film a video, and the tea is delicious. So today is going to be basically chatting about my makeup usage. I did already do one of these last quarter. Now that we have finished the second quarter of the year, it's time for an update. So the whole point of this project is that this year I backed off on a lot of my project pans, which I've always wondered if I could just reach for what I want in my collection. What actually is it that I'm going to reach for? Basically, since I got into makeup, I started project panning, which I still do have my big major project pan, but I backed off a lot of my projects this year and I just let myself work on just a few things in my project pan so that for the rest of the time through my Shop My Stash, I can just reach for what I want to use. And I have been tracking it. I haven't been tracking it across all categories, but mostly I've been tracking my single eyeshadows, my eyeshadow palettes, and my blushes. Those are my biggest categories. I do have a pretty big lip collection as well, but honestly, that would be really hard for me to track because I will randomly put things on and it would just become frustrating to try and track all that. So I haven't started tracking lipsticks this year. Maybe I can figure out a way to do that if I try to do this project again. Let me tell you, this project, looking at these numbers, it's definitely kind of got me raising my eyebrows a little bit at some of the things that I have used the most, and other things are, you know, not at all a surprise. So let's start by talking about blushes. If I count all my single blushes and then blush, like face palettes that are in and then blushes that are in face palettes. There we go, that's what I was trying to say. I have 63 of those. So now after 6 months, I have used 49 of them. I'm looking down at my notes here. So that is 78% of my blush collection that has been used at least one time. That's pretty good. I mean, we're halfway through the year. I've used over half. At the same time, it's not that good. It means I haven't even used all my blushes yet. We're over halfway through the year. So looking at what I've used the most, obviously the ones I've used the most are my Project Pan blushes. But if we don't count those, my most used blush so far this year would be Magic Hour from Tower 28 at 6 times. I also used my Rose Ink blush in the shade Daylily 5 times, which is, it's a very, very similar shade to Magic Hour from Tower 28. And I also used my Revlon blush in the shade Apricot 5 times. Now, both of those were new blushes to me this year, so some of those uses were just testing it, trying it out. So if we just look at things that weren't new in my collection, things that I haven't been testing, things that I just want to reach for, and things that I'm not project panning, this would definitely come in first place at 6 uses, which is not that much, but you know, I do have a lot of blush. This next category is actually rather painful for me to look at. That would be my single shadow category. In this category, I'm counting all my potted creams, all my shadow sticks, and all of my powder singles that are in my magnetic palettes like this. So the grand total of all those things together would be 186 little shadows. Of those, I've only used 47 of them. That's only 25% of my collection. I look at that, I just cringe. I'm like, ooh. But thinking about why that number would be so low, I have been more into palettes this year versus my singles. Also, a lot of my singles collection consists of special shades I don't reach for very often, but you know, I definitely want them in my collection. They're very special. I'm thinking of shadows like JD Glow Unexpected. I'm not gonna wear that shadow every day. It's just very intense. As for most used, I do have some single shadows in my project pan this year. I don't really talk about it that much in my project pan because there's not much to talk about, but these are the most used. I believe this shade down here is from Morphe. It's a shade called Hush Hush. I've used that one 14 times. Next up would be Makeup Geek So Pale Up Here. This one actually has a little dip in it. Look, ooh, look at that. That I've used 8 times. But aside from my project pan items, and also not counting new singles that came to my collection that I was testing, the most used single in my collection is still from Sydney Grace. This is the shade Peace, and I am wearing it on my lid today. If I have time today, I am planning on filming a Sydney Grace video after this, so hence why I decided to wear this again. It's just my favorite. I just love it. But even at my favorite and loving it, it only comes to 4 times, which again, when you have a lot of makeup, reaching for something 4 times is significant. It's a favorite. I also reached for this one 3 times. This is from Rimmel. This is the Wonder Cloud in the shade Honey Drop. I really like using this in my crease. I honestly was thinking about using it today. I decided to just go for a single shadow look, but anyway, I digress. 3 uses on this, which puts it in one of the most used singles in my collection, which I know it's not that much. I know. I can feel some judgment. But look, if you have this many shadows, it takes a long time to get through everything and to use everything more than once. Okay, so now let's talk about eyeshadow palettes. I have 49 palettes. I have used 26 of them. That is 53% of my eyeshadow collection. So halfway through the year and I've used half my collection. That's okay. I would rather it be a little bit higher than that. Not surprisingly, my most used palettes were ones I was testing. One of those would be my Lorac Noir palette. I used this palette 6 times so far this year. Isn't it glorious? Oh, it's great. I love this palette. And another one coming in at 5 uses is this one from M Cosmetics. This is the Rodin palette. Again, right up my alley, isn't it? Especially with my eyeshadows this year of all kinds, palettes, singles. I have not even been pulling them in my Shop My Stash. I only reach for them when I want to reach them, and it's helping me decide if I need to declutter some things. I have decided, I think, on some things I do need to declutter. I just don't even want to reach for them in my Shop My Stash. That declutter, I'll probably have that up within the next month. I was thinking I might just wait all year to do one big one at the end of the year, but I'm getting itchy to get them out of my collection. Once I decide something needs to go, I don't want to hang on to it anymore. So expect that video eventually here. At this point, I like to mention if I have any new pans in my collection. Right now, I haven't had any new pans for the past few months. I haven't really been focusing on hitting pan in eyeshadows or anything like, or blushes this year. I think the only thing I'm close to hitting pan on is that shadow that I showed you earlier from Makeup Geek. And it's not even necessarily that close. There you can kind of see the dip in the shade So Pale. I really enjoy having pans in my collection, but I've decided not to be so focused on it. I would rather get equal usage on all my stuff and all the stuff that I want to use, rather than forcing myself to use one thing. Even though I don't have new pans, I did have empties. After 6 months, I'm up to 18 makeup empties this year, which means that I have been maintaining my average of 3 makeup empties per month. I try not to compare myself to others. There are some people who can go through makeup incredibly quickly. When I see their empties videos, I'm like, how is that even possible? But I am happy with my number of 3. And that's even with the fact that I have been wearing a bit less makeup this year just due to some job changes in my life. In case you're new here and you don't know, my husband and I started a new business this year. We are operating, owning, and managing, whatever, a campground. So I spent a lot of time outside mowing and weed whipping and tree trimming. So yeah, not really makeup wearing situations. So not wearing as much makeup this year, so looking at that, I'm pretty happy still that I'm continuing to rotate through my collection and still manage to get some empties. If you're wondering what those empties are, I do a big makeup empties video at the end of the year, and then periodically throughout the year I do an empties video. There should be another one of those coming up relatively soon, actually. Now, I'm not doing a beauty bank this year, but I have been kind of keeping track of how many things I've been bringing into my collection, just out of curiosity. This year, I didn't really put a limit on myself. I decided I was just going to enjoy my hobby. As long as I wasn't, putting strain on my finances, I figured just let myself kind of do whatever I wished. But since I have been keeping track, I'll share that with you. It's honestly a bit alarming when you add it all up for months on end, how many items actually have come into my collection. Now remember, I did have empties and I do random declutters where I give stuff to friends. So not all of this is just sitting in drawers unused, okay? But it's still a really high number. I feel really awkward sharing it with you. But if I count everything, every little makeup item I picked up at TJ Maxx or whatever, any little mini that I purchased from Ulta, I have brought in 58 makeup products, which I don't even like to say it. I just feel embarrassed to even say it. So if I was doing a beauty bank, and if you count like all my empties versus my purchases, and if I started off the year with 35 points like I did last year, I would be at -6. If you're unfamiliar with a beauty bank, it's where you give yourself amount of points at the beginning of the year. When you buy something, you lose a point. When you use up something, you get a point back. So I would be in the negative, but not as actually far negative as I was thinking. Also, Just for a point of reference, I was thinking of my purchasing habits even a couple of years ago. Back then, I had a lot more subscription boxes. I would get Ipsy, BoxyCharm, a couple different Ipsy subscriptions actually. So there was a lot more makeup coming into my collection every single month than there was this year. I can tell you that much. At 58 products, still so much. That's like 9 or 10 products a month, which when you think about the subscription box situation, it's not even close. So even though I'm purchasing more than I did last year, it's still less than I did in years past where I didn't have restrictions on myself. So I do think I have made progress in that way. Also, I feel like a lot of those were on months where it was like a buy a mini, get a free mini type of thing at Ulta, or like with Salt New York, if I bought 3, they would give you 3 free. I think this is especially just alarming to me because the past couple months I haven't really been buying that much. So when I look at that, I'm like, how is that even possible? I recounted it several times to make sure that was the number of things that came into my collection. I do believe that is it. So as alarming as that is to myself, it is my little hobby. I really do enjoy trying out new things. And I also do enjoy giving things to my friends. When, like, if a shade or something just doesn't work for me, I really enjoy giving it to someone else to use. I don't like to keep stuff I don't like in my collection for very long. I like to quickly move them out and give them to friends, so, you know, before they get old. Which, just looking at my numbers from last quarter to this quarter, my purchasing has slowed down the past couple of months. At the end of the first quarter, I had brought in 30 items, whereas in the last 3 months, I've brought in 28. So I guess it actually hasn't gone down that much. It just feels like it. Anyway, this has been a very interesting exercise for me. I'm planning on continuing it all year, and hopefully it will lead to smarter purchasing decisions for myself in the future as to what I will actually wear. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this video. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for always being so positive in the comment section. I really do appreciate that. We all need positivity in our lives, and I'm so happy that I don't have to deal with like negativity in my comment section. It's actually very amazing to me. I know how the internet can be. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys. I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye!